welcome to the HindmanCast, a podcast of the Hindman Settlement School, where we explore the history, culture, and people that make the Hindman Settlement School what it is today, and how this historic institution will continue to serve its mission of celebrating heritage and changing lives in Central Appalachia. I'm Corey Terry. And welcome back to another episode of the HindmanCast, and it's been a little bit since we've been able to put out an episode. It's been a very, very busy year, a busy summer throughout that, and we're trying to get back on our feet here in the fall, even though it's November now, and we've had the earliest snow I read in 30 years. So it's nice and snowy outside today, but hopefully the warm temperatures, the somewhat warm temperatures, the cozy warm temperatures of fall will come back later on this week, because I'm not ready for the cold. I'm not too into the winter. I like to be warm. But anyway, we're going to get back onto the HindmanCast. Getting back in line with these episodes and trying to get them back out on a regular basis. And for this episode, our literary arts director, Melissa Helton, caught up with two of our Ironwood Young Writers Conference instructors, Gwen Akers and Joy Priest. And they sit down and discuss the importance of Ironwood and the importance of building that next generation of literary authors in the Appalachian writing community. So it's a great conversation with them. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Melissa.
Hello, welcome to the literary edition of the Hindman Podcast. I am Melissa Helton, literary arts director, and joining me today we've got Joy Priest and Gwen Akers, and I'll let them introduce themselves here in a second. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Ironwood, which is our young writers version of the Appalachian Writers Workshop, where high school writers come stay a week on campus and they work with various writers and learn about different types of craft, different genres, and have those types of experiences, learning more about themselves as writers, but also building this creative community of their peers throughout the region. And this summer in 2025, both Joy and Gwen were on staff for Ironwood. So we're going to talk about what their experiences were like, why things like this are important. So Joy and Gwen, Joy, you want to start us off? Introduce yourself, how you come to the Hindman writing community, what kind of writing you do, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm Joy Priest, and I think the first time I came to Hyman, I was 19 years old, and my professor, Nikki Finney, I was a student at the University of Kentucky. She brought a group of young writers because she has such a strong relationship to the Appalachian Writers Workshop. And she started, I don't know if it was the first, but of my era, it was the late, like the 19 to 22-year-old program. So like in that mid space of now what would be Ironwood and the adult writers workshop, or the adult Ironwood as they say. And yeah, it was like an incredible experience. I'm born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. So I personally had not grew up in Appalachia. My grandparents did, but it was an incredible experience, and it was my foundational experience as a writer. So yeah, and so what else was it that I should say?
That's good for now. We'll come back around to talk about this summer. Gwen, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Gwen Akers. I'm a senior English education and Spanish student at Morehead State. I first came to Hyman when I was a senior in high school. I was part of the inaugural class of Ironwood Writers. And it was just one of the most impactful and amazing experiences of my life. And I've been coming back to Hyman ever since. I'm mostly a prose writer, but I love experimenting and trying out new things. So yeah. And I'm from Ashland. I don't know if I said that.
So Gwen, what was your role at Ironwood this summer, and what was that experience like?
So this summer, I had the amazing opportunity to come back and be a counselor. So that meant that I got to work directly with the students, kind of helping them get accustomed to their classes and what was happening during the camp. And it was really amazing because I got to kind of build these one-on-one relationships with the students and serve in kind of like a mentor role. I got to talk to a lot of them about what it means to be a young writer and also help them kind of find their own confidence, which I feel like is one of the most important parts of Ironwood is building up the confidence of these young writers, helping them find their voice. And it was just a wonderful experience for me.
Since you had the experience of being a student in that inaugural class, and then this was your first time back in a staff position as kind of like a counselor and mentor, what was the difference in those two experiences, or what kind of similarities did you have?
It was definitely one of those amazing full circle moments because I remember coming to Ironwood the first time being, really nervous, not exactly sure about where my path was ahead, and I hadn't quite found my voice. And it was amazing coming back this time where I've had a few years of experience between now and then, and getting to be kind of on the other side of that and getting to experience that same feeling of, confidence, creativity, and being around just a community of people that really love and are inspired by the same things that I am all over again, but this time in kind of a mentorship role. And it was just so important for me to be able to see kind of the end of that cycle and to be able to, you know, give a few people, the confidence and the push they need to put themselves out there and keep following that path.
And since you have attended the adult Ironwood, the Appalachian Writers Workshop, a couple times, what was that experience like of going? Because Ironwood is much smaller.
Mhm.
We do a lot more non-writing things. We have we this year we made pickles at the farmers market. We have art classes. We go to Yoder's and get ice cream. I think of those things as kind of like writing adjacent, just ways to spend time together and have fun away from the writing itself, but hopefully experiences that feed and fertilize the writing that's coming out of this. What was it like shifting into the Appalachian Writers Workshop after, unfortunately, we only had you for the 1 year before you kind
Yeah.
of moved out of Ironwood, but what was that like?
It was definitely, I was definitely really nervous about it. But at the same time, one of my favorite parts of Ironwood was getting those kind of enriching experiences and being able to learn from and spend time with people that are really experienced and amazing writers in this community. And kind of going into, adult Ironwood or the Appalachian Writers Workshop, it was amazing getting to be completely immersed with those people that are experienced, that know what they're doing, and that can kind of, give me the tools and the inspiration to keep going on that path. And while I was definitely nervous about it, it ended up being an experience that just really showed me that, like, hey, I want to be these people. I want to be able to make these changes that these people are making. And getting to be with them and be in a community with them has just been so amazing for me.
Joy, can you tell us more about was the program with Nikki Finney, was that called the 20? What was that like, since that's it, very related to what we're doing with Ironwood. Tell us more about that.
It was called the 20, it was like an Appalachian Young Writers Workshop or something like that. I forget and I'm trying to remember, I don't think we did an anthology, but I think Marianne Worthington published a folio of our work in Steele the Journal. So that was like my first ever publication, and it was for a lot of us. But it was very similar to Ironwood. Like, we had nonfiction, fiction, and poetry, and we took all those classes throughout the week. And we had, I think it was Joan Dyer was our nonfiction um, teacher. AJ Burdell and Crystal Wilkinson were there for fiction, and Nikki was our poetry teacher. But yeah, so we kind of cycled through those classes throughout the week, and it was real craft. It was like a serious, like, craft classes. And I just remember the moths. I don't know, there's these huge moths that the time of the year we were there were like all over our screen doors when we woke up in the mornings. And I don't know, something came over us. We were just possessed by the spirit of Seal or something. I don't know. We were just like really into it and just enchanted the whole time we were there. And the similarity to Ironwood for me is that we came back about 3 years, I think, in a row. And so we built relationships to one another. And, it became our writing community. Like I still know and talk to some of those people, like Danny Quintos, who's my Appalachian poet sister now, and Clay Shields. He's from um, Eastern Kentucky. Where is Ashland, Kentucky? I still talk to him. He's visited me in Pittsburgh. So I'm still connected with those people, and it was like really important in sort of instilling in me that writing is, not what they say always a lonely act, like because it started for me in community. Yeah.
So what was your role this summer with Ironwood?
I was I taught the poetry classes. So that was my role. And yeah, I don't know, being goofy, the goofy teacher. Um, we had a poetry carnival. I was just, coming up with things. And it was just really a treat for me because that's the demographic that I interact with the least as a teacher because I'm a college professor in my day job. And then sometimes I get asked to come teach like a one-off workshop, and that's usually with older folks. So high schoolers, it was just really a treat for me, and I think it's the most important age group to be around and to fellowship with right now, especially as writers and around creativity and art making, and they're just I think it's our most precious at this moment, and maybe in ever in time, group to be around. It's rewarding for us. So.
When I think too, this particular group, this cohort for the next couple years, they started high school under COVID lockdown,
Mm.
and they had, especially ones in this area, then they had devastating floods year after year, whether they come from, Eastern Kentucky or Eastern Tennessee or Western North Carolina. Like a lot of our students that are coming here have had a very difficult couple years, and so they have a lot of need, I think, for building community. Especially we spend so much time on our phones, and that's a very helpful way to build community, especially when you're so far away from each other. But physically getting in space together is so
Mm.
important. And
Mhm.
I'm glad you mentioned Dani Quintos because she is going to be on staff next year. So
Oh.
she's going to come do poetry, which I'm very excited. We've got Wendy Dinwiddie, who's going to come do fiction, and she led the Tennessee Young Writers Conference down there at Lincoln Memorial University, I believe. And then Sonia Livingston is going to come down and do nonfiction. So we've got a great staff lineup. The staff is always it's always great, and it's such a challenge for me as an organizer because everybody is so great. The mentors, the staff, the guests, that I want you guys to come back again year after year after year. But then there's also the challenge where I want the students to get to know more of you guys, more of the community, and also because I think it is beneficial for us. I want more of you guys to experience the Ironwood students and experience, that kind of Hindman magic for the young folks. So it's always agonizing because I want the staff to be the same. If I could have all you guys again, but then I'm always excited to get new folks in here. So I'm glad you mentioned Dani, and thank you for explaining kind of how the 20 worked.
Hey, I wanted to interrupt the conversation for a brief moment. Not to talk about something completely unrelated, but to let you know that Hindman Settlement School is currently in our end-of-year holiday donation appeal, and as part of that, we produced several videos across each of our program areas, and one of those videos in relation to our literary arts programming was an interview with a Ironwood student who went through the program for several years. His name is Jasper Clark, and he had a very great story about how Ironwood impacted him, and I wanted to show that video to you in relation to the conversation that we're having today, just to give you a student's story, the impact that Ironwood has made for them. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to www.hindman.org/donate, and you can check out more there and see how you can donate to our winter or holiday appeal for 2025. And here's the video.
I'm Jasper Clark. I am currently enrolled at BCTC, Bluegrass Community Technical College. I'm going to study history and maybe minor in sociology. I think that my poems a lot of times, I go through phases. So right now I'm very hyperfixated on like the whole idea of exile and like how we naturally put ourselves into it. I think in the modern era, people are so desperate and so sad. And I think I see a lot of people exiling from themselves all of the time, and I think we're unaware of it. And so I like to write that down. A lot of times writers have this deep sense of like isolation or loneliness because they don't have anyone to either feel like they can share their writing with or that they can discuss their writing with. When I went to Hindman and I met all these people who had a shared interest and who were more interested than me even and had more passion for it, I sort of just gained like passion by proxy. You know, like there was the first year I went in 2024, there was a teacher named Manuel Ares. He helped me talk to people. I was more quiet. I've had so many walls up the first time I came, and then by the end of it, they had all been shattered. I was very like guarded up in myself for that entire summer beforehand, and that maybe a lifetime before that. Honestly, I always had a deep problem with being seen and being perceived by other people. But when it comes to Ironwood, how that helped me was I was finally around people who I didn't have to like hide from in any way. And I think that that's the beauty of sharing poems with people, is that you just kind of get like just a doorway. I had always enjoyed the idea of being a writer because I enjoyed being a reader, but I did not really understand like what it meant as a craft to be a writer. And I think that I did not have passion in the right places. I loved the image rather than the physical act of it, and I think through Hindman I learned to love putting pen to paper.
So what would be, because you've both kind of had those young writer experiences, why are these things important? I know, Gwen, you talked about confidence in writing. What are some of the other benefits that you see for young writers? Because I didn't have anything like this growing up. My first poetry class was probably my junior year in college. So I never had that kind of writing community until I was 30 years old and came to Hindman. So what are the benefits of this if we're going to make an argument why it's important?
One thing for me is just like being shown that writing doesn't have to be a solitary action. I mean, I've always been a writer, but I never quite let myself accept that because it was always something that I did just for me. You know, it was never something I talked to people about. I didn't have like a ton of classes or anything like that where I was sharing creative writing specifically with other people until I had the opportunity to come to Ironwood and see, you know, like creative writing is something that you share with other people, an interest that you share, something that really just allows you to connect with others, hear their stories, and help them find their voice too, as well as your own. And that was just something that really meant a lot to me, especially where, you know, I was, you know, just graduating from high school and trying to figure out where I wanted to go moving forward. And it was just so inspiring for me to get to meet these people that were like, hey, we're in this together, you know?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's two things for me. Number one, um, it's sort of like it gives young people who I think have to sort of be on their best behavior in their communities, make sure that they're, you know, making all the adults proud and doing all the things they're supposed to do at all times, and, you know, kind of being under a microscope. It gives them a place to go and just like relax and be relieved from all of that, all those expectations, and kind of have a space to like get curious about who they are outside of like, you know, whose daughter they are, or whose child they are, and yeah, find out who they are, explore artistically. It's kind of like a little artistic vacation. And then two, I think that it's like, this was especially true for me, is coming to something like that showed me that there were real things for us to be proud of about where we were from. like the cultural history of where we're from. There's like it, we learn a lot that gives us pride in Appalachia, in Kentucky, and just to learn that there was such a strong legacy of writing in Appalachia, in Kentucky, and labor history and organizing and things like that, and that we're not invisible in the, American imagination was just like really empowering. And so I think that part is a huge part of Ironwood too, because I love that. I think that talk where the three women came that were the mine, like they were the mine labor organizers in the mid 20th century or early 20th century, and they got to participate in putting together a journalism story. Um, and you get like real skills from this stuff. Like you realize, oh, writing doesn't just have to be like something I do in my journal. There's ways that I can, be a part of this seriously in my life. So it's ultimately, I think, to wrap all of that up together is I always say that studying writers, I always end up discovering that at some point in their life they were silenced in some way, and
Mhm.
writing became a way for them to speak for themselves. And so I think that really happens at Hyman, in a serious way. So
Yeah, and I think that's such a pivotal point in where we find ourselves in modern literature, Appalachian literature, Kentucky literature, is that there's this wonderful explosion of nuance that publishers and readers are very interested in, um, showing the great diversity and types of ways that you can be an Appalachian and you can live and thrive in Kentucky and in this region. And I think that we have all these ideas that we generate ourselves, and also the outside world generates for us about where we're from, and whether we're from a rural center, an urban center, wherever we are, and letting these young folks know that the way that they see the world and the way that they create in the world is valued, is important, that we need their art, we need their ideas, we need their arguments and their experiences. And so, like, trying to look at other ways that we can like bridge these young writers into the adult literary world. We've been able to bring them, to Winterboro in December, where they have done a presentation, and we hope that we can organize that again for this December. Give them kind of that professional experience of presenting at a conference, that practice and experience of reading their writing to more of an audience, that is, there's some familiar faces in the audience, but a lot of strangers. And that's a great skill and takes practice, as we've all stood at podiums with our paper shaking, and we learn how to do that more effectively, more confidently. And but to show these young folks that the writing community, and particularly Hindman's writing community, is very excited that they're joining us, and that we value them and enthusiastically welcome them here. Because I really wish, and I think that's something I've heard from so many of folks who've come to staff, who have been guests, or who have just watched our social media posts and things like that about Ironwood. I've heard so many of us say, I wish I had something like that. And I think, Joy, you really pointed to a very important thing about how so many writers and artists have been silenced, and that we find a way to um, uh, process things through our art, to say things through our art. Because Gwen, I was the same, where my writing just lived in a journal. I never knew that I wanted to or could take that seriously as a career, as a um, life choice, lifestyle. I don't know how to say it, but because I was working at a car factory in Detroit before I went back to school for writing, because I was using my environmental degree. And then I was like, well, this is terrible. Let me go back and study something that I care about.
yeah, I think a lot about that because I had done the 20 experience, and then I didn't really have anything on the horizon after that. And so I was waiting tables in Kentucky for several years and sending out, because of the 20, I knew about submitting poems to journals because of Marion, because of, the writing legacy in Kentucky. And so I was just waiting tables and doing that for a few years. And I think a lot about how, um, rare it felt growing up for anyone to leave where I was from or have something to live for, you know? And because I had had this experience, um, I knew that there was something I could do, that I could hope for, that I could like, try for, and I wasn't just stuck in where I was, So there was a whole world out there. Not that I'm encouraging leaving where you're from because it's really, I think I wish more of us would stay, but yeah. And so I ended up, because of just sending out poems to journals while I was waitressing, like getting a graduate fellowship. So just because of that experience. So.
Yeah. When we look at for folks who don't know much about Ironwood, the way that the week is structured is that the students had they were split into two groups, and our students come from across Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia. Um, and the way that the week is structured, so they'll be split into two groups, and then they each have a class with Joy. They each had a class with Karen Sellier Malcolm-Murray, who taught nonfiction this year. And then they had an hour with Jim Minnick, who taught fiction. And then and then they had an hour with Ariel Dingus, who is a professor at Southeast Kentucky Community and Technical College, and she kind of talked about different genres and tropes. So, like, what do we expect out of a piece of horror? What do we expect out of sci-fi? What do we expect out of historical fiction? To take like that literary perspective, so students can see where to plug their writing in. And then during the day, we also had, like I said, art classes. They took photography with Tyler Barrett. They had some paper marbling with our staff member, Maria Reisner. They also had guest readers come in. We had a publishing panel where students could kind of learn a little bit about that if they eventually want to choose the publishing route. And then a lot of downtime where they can, play games and, sit out on the porch and rest and decompress and talk and sit down with a mentor and talk about their writing and all that kind of stuff. But for you guys, can you give us like an experience or an example of what it was kind of like for you that would show our viewers kind of like a little bit of the magic outside of classroom or in classroom?
One thing that was really impactful for me are the participant readings that happen at Ironwood. So there's two of them. There's the first one, which is a reading where the students just read for the staff and the other students. And then there's a reading at the very end of the week for like the parents and the public that come to the reading. And for me, when I was at Ironwood, that was my first time ever reading a piece that I had written out loud, besides just like in the class sections that I had throughout the week. And it was one of those moments in my life where I remember, getting up on that stage and being so freaked out, obviously. I was really nervous to share in that kind of way, but also realizing, that even when you're nervous about something, if you really love it and you really love what you're doing, then the nerves don't get in the way. And it was so powerful for me to have that kind of experience of realizing that, writing what is close to my heart, writing about my people, my home, my family, and sharing that with people and having someone in the crowd relate to what I've written is just, it's something I can't even put into words. It was just so powerful for me to be able to share with that community and to have people respond back to it. And I feel like getting to have those two different opportunities to read, both with the participants and then later with my family, was just such a way of bridging my writing from something I did by myself in my journal to something that now I want to share with other people, and I want to help other people, craft their own pieces and share their own voice. So,
hmm Yeah, first of all, I want to correct something I said earlier. I said Joan Dyer, and I meant Joyce Dyer, who's a writer from Ohio. Please forgive me, Joyce. See this. We did a whole conference at my in my department this weekend, and I'm like really exhausted. So I was like, that don't sound right. Did you see my face when I was saying the name words? I was like, I don't think that's right. But I just remember her teaching us about the she was teaching us about the nonfiction essay, and I still remember the ruminant stomach. The ruminant animal has four stomachs, and that being the kind of structure of the essay. But anyways. What Gwen uh, is talking about reminds me of something that happened at this conference yesterday. We were doing a tribute panel to this writer, Toy Derricott, and she just started, in her 80s, and she just bust out sobbing, saying, I never thought that 3-year-old, that 8-year-old, I never thought she would be understood this way. And it's just so important, like what you're saying, like about reading for the first time in front of your community, like it matters most to us when our community understands us, in a way that no one else can. And so that's just something that I feel they get to experience here. And I know for me, the two sort of quintessential experiences outside of the writing classes was like the line dancing class. And I just remembered how that is a type of exercise. Should I just say? I forgot how like in shape you need to be to do that stuff, but but it was also educational at the same time. And then I don't know, these are just my memories, but I cannot get over when we were leaving, like literally everyone was walking out the door to get in the cars with their parents, and Jasper was on the piano playing a song in a way, kind of just playing us out. And the hidden talent uh, displayed in that moment was just sort of kind of the theme of the week for me, just constantly being blown away by the things that they slowly in layers revealed about themselves across the week that they started to feel comfortable to reveal about themselves, and like how educated I was outside of the class I was teaching. So
Yeah, that's I think what you're saying about the hidden talents or how multi-talented these young folks are, it stuns me every year. We get new people coming in and we get some repeats coming in every year. And one of the things that I want all those students to know is the conversations we have when it's just the faculty and how much all of the faculty are like, these students are amazing.
yeah,
And
blown.
I have heard that so many times from so many of the faculty that are just talking about the talent of these young folks. And a lot of them, they don't have any creative writing programming in their high school. So a lot of them, it is their first time. And to
Or
see
it's
that they
funded,
have that. Go ahead.
or it's getting defunded.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think two of my, so we've just finished our fourth year, and, I cry every year at that podium. I sobbed like a baby this time because some of the ones who they were joined us the first year, and this is the fourth year, and now they've aged into the adult writing community. So we gave them graduation certificates, and I just sobbed like I always do. Um, but some of the real standout moments have been when I read the evaluations and I see that a student says, this year has been really tough. This week helped me tremendously. To see how this helped them as holistic people, not just I'm a better fiction writer, but and then to see, because my daughter Kelsey attended the first 3 years, to see that a lot of these students they have like a Google Doc where they share their writing and they comment on each other's writing. That's just continuing on after all these years to see that, we kind of like lay out the foundation, but they really are the ones building their own community and maintaining their own community across great distance because they're scattered throughout the Central Appalachian states. Um, and one of the beautiful moments that I remember from last year, we had Manuel Iris. He was Cincinnati Poet Laureate, Mexican American writer who was down here teaching poetry. And during the faculty reading, he read some of his poems in English and in Spanish. And one of our students, who is a Hispanic student, was very visibly moved by this to say that I have never heard somebody read poetry to me in Spanish before. And to think, if you think about southeastern Kentucky and you've never been here and you don't know how incredibly gracious and diverse our writing community is, you'd be like, you'd be surprised maybe that an experience like that could happen up here at the McLean Chapel on campus. And that was just a beautiful kind of highlight to me to say, like, yes, what we're doing, it might frazzle us at times. We might be tired. We might be running around like chickens with our heads cut off. But in so many ways, the work that we're doing is important for these people as creators, as members of this community, but just as holistic people. And so when I think about some of the magical moments, some of those come to mind for me. Well, is there anything else that you guys would like to say in here, either about Ironwood or about publications, festivals, partnerships, anything you else want people to know before we?
I just want to say, like, I just think it's so important to, like, our young people just need to be listened to and not talked to so much. And that's like a great space for them to be able to be listened to right now, especially. And I think, the Appalachian, what's the big conference called?
The adult Ironwood.
No, not Appalachian Writers Workshop. Yes, apply to that if you graduated from Ironwood for sure.
Oh, Appalachian Studies Association.
Appalachian Studies Association. But yeah, to talk about Appalachian Writers Workshop. Yeah, I came to the 20 as a young person, and then I came back to the Appalachian Writers Workshop as a Nikki Giovanni scholar. And then I came back as a teacher, just like very full circle. And so I just, my heart is there even when I'm not. And so I always am excited to get back. And, there are people that would go into that thing for decades and together. I mean, it's just incredible. But also, Appalachian Studies conference is coming up. I think it would be wonderful to like put some together with people who graduated out of Ironwood, or I've been in the adult Ironwood together, or I just hope to see people there. So
That's a great idea. I would love to be able to take the students to conferences. And we've also been talking with administration here and also some of our funders about one way that we can expand and deepen what we offer to these high school writers is potentially taking them to conferences at universities and then pairing that with a campus tour so that these high school writers can also see, like, oh, this is what the programming is like at UK or at Marshall or at Lincoln Memorial, so that they can also see if they want to study writing, what options are available to them. So I completely agree. That would be great.
Yeah, and similar to what Joy was saying, just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and to, look around, find yourself a community, take these opportunities if you see them. That was something that I really needed to hear when I was just starting my journey as a writer. It's just, don't be afraid. Don't let your own worries or fears get in your way. Put yourself out there. There are people out here that want to listen to you and want to support you. You just have to find them.
Well, that's a perfect note to end on. Well, thank you, Joy Priest and Gwen Akers, for joining us on this issue of the HindmanCast. I appreciate you guys.
All right, and with that, we thank you, Gwen and Joy, for coming on the podcast and sitting down and talking to Melissa today, and filling us in on the impact that Ironwood has made on you all as instructors. And before we close out today, I just want to take you over here to our calendar on our website, just to let you know a little bit about what's coming up here at the Settlement School. November 20th, we have our Grow Appalachia Harvest Celebration. So if you're a part of our Grow Appalachia program, I would love to see you there for that. And our next big event coming up is our Winterboro Literary and Arts Conference, and that is December 12th through the 14th, and that's just a gathering of, sort of both of our programs, our literary arts programs and our traditional arts programs, kind of coming together and making a collaborative conference event. Always a good time there, so be sure to hop over to our website and check out all of that and register for that event as well. Also, during that same weekend on the 13th is our Gather and Grow community dinner that we have throughout the year. And this one is our Christmas event where we give out gifts to our community members and children that come through, and Santa Claus will be there. It's a great big old time. So if you're in town, please come join us for that. Bring your kids out and have a good time there with us at Gather and Grow. And until next time, my name is Corey Terry, and we'll see you then.
The HindmanCast is brought to you by the faithful and generous supporters of the Hindman Settlement School. For over 100 years, we've been celebrating heritage and changing lives in Central Appalachia. If you're interested in supporting the work of Hindman Settlement School, you can go to our website at www.hindman.org, or you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the handle @HindmanSchool.